Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode number 29. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us on this Wednesday show, Dave. Hanging in there? You didn't jump off the cliff or off the ledge or anything yet? Right, Dave? Still here?
Yeah, I'm still here. I don't know how many other people are listening. Maybe it might be there are probably a lot of people real angry with us about right now, but I don't know if we're going to make them any happier today. But look, a great day to be alive. Got to watch a lot of all 22 tape yesterday, and obviously listen and break down the Mike Tomlin press conference and write about that as well too. So life is good. A little touch of fall in the air out here in Las Vegas, Nevada as well too.
Yeah, lots to talk about today, from Mike Tomlin to roster moves to reviewing the All-22 from the Bengals game Sunday. I want to also preview a little bit later in the show. We'll have a Packers beat writer, Tom Silverstein, Milwaukee Sentinel, covers the Packers over there for a long time, does a live blog also during Packers games for PackersNews.com. So be sure to follow him on Twitter, and we'll talk to him in a little bit. But Dave, we'll start here with Pittsburgh and a roster move the team has made yesterday. An outside linebacker swap. Derek Tuszka, who was elevated from the practice squad to play on Sunday against the Bengals, now has a semi-permanent home on the 53, being added to the 53-man roster officially, and Jameer Jones being the odd man out, getting waived after a pretty poor performance against the Bengals. Probably will sign to the practice squad, assuming he clears waivers later today. But a swap day with Tuszka coming up, and Jones, we presume, will be getting sent down.
Yeah, and a little bit of a surprise there. I didn't focus too much on the play of Tuszka, I think, more than Jones there. I think you're right, though. I think Derek did outplay Jameer Jones, but even so, there were some holes in Derek's game on that edge as well, too, there. And I kind of wonder how much maybe special teams related this might be as well, too, because Derek's probably the slightly more athletic of the two, the higher pedigree guy on top of it. Now, obviously, we hope we don't have to see a lot more of Derek moving forward, right, on the defensive side of football. Obviously, that'll be dictated on the health of Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt this week as well, too, there. But, yeah, I did think Derek, for what I focused on, did outplay. And look, I mean, we talked about it. Jameer Jones was going to be a guy that was going to be in the crosshairs, we thought, probably more than what he actually played. I was surprised at the way the snap count overall went between those two. Obviously, Melvin Ingram, I think, played every defensive snap in that game. But for a guy that was hyped quite a bit, by us as well, too, I think, during the preseason and training camp there and all, here we are. Jameer Jones, going to have to clear waivers today and probably wind up back on the practice squad.
Yeah, and hopefully Tuszka's playing just that special teams role as at number 4 outside linebacker, if you assume and hope that Watt and Highsmith can come back, and with Ingram obviously still being there. I mean, Tuszka only played 2 snaps on special teams, and Jones played more, and I think has done a decent job on special teams, but as an outside linebacker itself, I think Tuszka did outplay Jones. Now, neither of them were great or very good overall, but I did think that Jones looked smaller, more hesitant, crashing down the backside of some of those runs, and probably less effective as a pass rusher overall. So, I think, certainly if Highsmith and Watt or both or one of them can't go, then I think you'd rather have Tuszka as an actual outside linebacker. Special teams, though, I mean, I know Tuszka did it last year with Denver, so maybe it's not a big difference there. But I think certainly right now Tuszka's the better actual outside linebacker.
Do you think Tuszka just probably knows his assignments a little bit better, too? Obviously he hasn't been with the team as long as Jameer Jones, but it was I guess what I'm getting at is there. I thought Derek did outplay him, but I mean, from a pass rushing standpoint, I didn't see either one of them really kind of stick out that much. I think Derek worked worked maybe better in a few times that he lined up on the same side as Ingram. However, there was the time I think early in the game there where both Ingram and Jones were on the left side, and they both ended up crashing into each other, that nobody got to the quarterback there. But I thought both of them were able to get not. The Steelers obviously didn't have a lot of really great pressure during the day, but that was probably one of those times there that they did. So, not a huge earth-shattering move by any stretch of imagination, but I was a little bit surprised by it.
Yeah, but the snap counts. I mean, Jones got to start in that game and then really did not play much at all in the second half. It was Tuska that kind of took over, so I guess that was kind of the writing on the wall. But that is the Steelers roster move, the only one that they've made so far. Let's talk about Mike Tomlin and his Tuesday press conference. And I don't know, it felt a little strange to me. It just felt a little stilted for a Tomlin presser. I don't know if you got that feeling or not, but to the substance of it, Tomlin talking injury report, and obviously didn't commit a whole lot to any one player, but did note that he expects Deontay Johnson, TJ Watt, and Alex Highsmith to play or to practice this week. And he said, the standard, they'll let their practice time kind of be the guide in terms of playing. So it's a good sign those guys will practice this week and hopefully get ready to play against the Packers on Sunday.
How did you describe his press conference? What word?
Kind of stilted. It just kind of felt like
you're using those big words with me now. I'm a Southern kid and went to Catholic school. Not that means anything, but how would you describe that again? Stilted?
Kind of like. Yeah, just like I don't know. It just kind of struck me a little different because Tomlin has started off with a 3-prong approach of how we'll fix things, and it just felt a little more formal than usual for Tomlin. I don't know. It just kind of felt a little off to me.
Yeah, not excuse laden or.
No, it wasn't even that. It just I don't know. It's hard for me to kind of articulate the point. I guess I'm struggling a little bit clearly here, but it just felt a little off to me overall.
I think he's pretty befuddled.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
I think he's got so many of those plates trying to spin and right now and because there are a lot of things that this team needs to work on. Obviously this week, and it's not a great week to try to work on them. I don't think, having to travel on the road and go play a top-notch organization and quarterback Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers there. But I guess we'll start with the kind of injury report there, and on the whole, it sounds good. But how many times have we said that on a Wednesday podcast to have things go kind of south there? It sounds like Derek Watt and Alex Highsmith and Deontay Johnson will all be out there in some form or fashion on Wednesday, and then we'll obviously see how it progresses from there. They got to have both those guys back. I mean, if they want any chance whatsoever, I think, to compete on the defensive side of football, they have to have both those guys back and being able to play, like we know they can play to make a difference in this game. And look, Deontay Johnson, they missed Deontay Johnson and his route running ability, obviously against the Bengals, I think there. And it'd be nice to obviously to have him back. Now the guys that were injured in game, Juju Smith-Schuster with the ribs and Kendrick Green and Chukwuma Okorafor, we'll have to see what happens with Okorafor. I'm not even so convinced that Okorafor might get the way Mike Tomlin talked about Joe Haig later on in the press conference there, and I think you wrote that up as well too. I think there's reason to maybe think, even though Tomlin said no changes are planned, injury could obviously change that on top of it there. So it would be interesting to watch Chukwuma Okorafor work through a concussion protocol this week. It sounds like Kendrick Green and maybe a bone bruise in the knee, and obviously Juju with the bruised ribs will try to work through those this week as well too. The only person I don't think we learned anything about was Carlos Davis and that knee injury. Not that it's huge, but it would be nice to have a more experienced, or not more experienced, a guy like him be able to dress over, let's say, a guy like Henry Mondeau, who I don't think really necessarily had a great game against the Bengals there on Sunday there. So, I think we'll learn a little bit maybe whether if Carlos Davis does not practice on a Wednesday after missing the last 2 games, he's probably not going to play. I wouldn't think come Sunday against Green Bay there. So it sounds positive, but once again, how many times have we said that on a Wednesday to have it not end up so great?
Yeah, and I think the Thursday injury report matters more overall. Wednesday, a lot of guys, it's rest, it's more precautionary, and then Thursday kind of is when things really, I think, start to matter. So expect today's injury report to be long. Hopefully, guys more limited than DNP, but we'll see what the report is and have a full write up this afternoon and this evening over on Steelers Depot.
He also talked about the IR guys too, and I don't know how you read that in the full context, but my takeaway, and Lord knows I hope I'm wrong in this instance here, is it doesn't feel like or Tomlin didn't seem all that optimistic about having any of those guys back. Talking about Stephon Tuitt, Zach Banner, Anthony McFarland Jr., other than saying that those guys are now eligible to resume practicing, there was really no hint that they will. And even if they do, I mean, we'll find out today if those guys, if they open up the 21-day window on those guys. But even if they did open up the 21-day window on those guys, did you get a sense that any of them have a chance to play on Sunday?
I didn't get that sense. Now that could change, obviously, but nothing Tomlin said, which was very little about those IR guys. He just basically said, I hadn't asked about those guys, which generally means either he didn't ask or no one came to him to tell him that those guys might be ready, which kind of indicates probably they won't be ready to at least play, let alone practice in week 4. So we'll see, but I'm with you. I don't get the feeling those guys are coming back to play the Pack.
Me either. And even if whenever they open up the window on any of those guys, maybe not so much with McFarland because he's younger and and all, but I would expect those guys to have to at least practice. I guess what I'm saying is if the window, whatever Wednesday that they open the window on those guys to start practicing, I think I'd be surprised, really, if any of them played that following, let's say, Sunday. But, I mean,
yeah.
Well, obviously, you'd think that you'd want them out there and to get a look at them for a full week of practice, get back in, I guess, quote-unquote football shape. But, stranger things have happened. We'll see if the team announces anything before practice on Wednesday about opening up the 21-day window on any of those guys.
After talking about injuries, Tomlin had his 3-prong approach to how to turn this team around. That's kind of the weird part. I just never seen him have that very formal, we'll do X, Y, and Z better, but I guess they're trying to build this thing from the ground floor. So the 3 prongs were, in his words, schematics, skills relative to each player's position, and knowledge relative to each player's position. So pretty obvious stuff, but obviously areas this team is failing at across the board: scheme, skills, and football IQ.
Yeah, I bet you have a 16-prong approach, don't you?
I'm a big nerd. I got the pens, the pen protector, whatever it is, and the big glasses. Yeah, that's me over here.
Yeah, look, you're right. I see where I teased you at the top of the show there, use a big word, but I mean, it did sound like more formal, I guess, more like talking to more national media than I guess local media. Look, we know the warts. I think everybody that covers the team has a pretty good idea about what the warts are. What did you think about the 3 prongs?
I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with them. They're all pretty obvious stuff. With scheme, he said play to the strengths, minimize weaknesses. They hadn't done that well enough. Hard to disagree with anything. He said, skills relative to positions. They got to practice better and use better technique. And knowledge is some of those young guys basically growing and making mistakes and learning and getting better and not making the same mistake twice. So there's nothing to disagree with there. I mean, it's an obvious thing you could probably talk about with any team right now about having good scheme and having good players and playing smart. I mean, that's a foundation for any team to try to win.
Did it sound like he tried to filibuster a lot longer maybe when in that opening, and then obviously he goes into talking about the Packers and all like that? It just seemed like a little bit longer opening than usual as well too. He says they're not panicking. I guess overall the takeaway that I got is no major changes, are going to happen. Not that he has many options, I don't think, for change. Anyway, we talked about Joe Haeg, maybe a possibility there, but other than Joe Haeg probably being a better run blocker than Chukwuma Okorafor, I mean, what level of an upgrade would you really consider that? You're obviously not going to, other than Deontay Johnson getting back and you're not having to play Cody White. I suppose that's an upgrade for you for sure there. But I mean that's more of a captain obvious one because getting an injured player back there. Anything else that you would consider changing that maybe Mike Tomlin isn't?
No, not from a personnel standpoint. I don't think. I do think Haig would be a noticeably better run blocker. Would that solve all the run blocking issues? No, but do I think he's a significantly better run blocker than a core four? I do. And we'll see if a core four is even available. And then what happens with Zach Banner? Is he going to be available? Probably not, but we'll wait and see on that one. So maybe that could be a slight boost there. But it's really about just trying to I think have a better scheme. I think the scheme and the game plan was poor. Before the game on Sunday, Tomlin had told Steelers.com that this is a coach's game. Kind of whenever you have a lot of injuries and you're up against the wall and you're trying to make this thing work, this is, in Tomlin's words, this is what coaches get paid for, essentially. And so the fact this team failed massively against the Bengals, to me, is an indictment of the coaching staff. And so I think from a schematic standpoint, those things have to get better. Of course, there are player execution issues, and we could talk, and we will talk for an hour about that stuff. But I think the scheme and the game plan, offense and defense, when you're running into a 5-2, 6-2 front at a heavy personnel, when Tomlin says that's stupid, that's a scheme issue. When Melvin Ingram drops into coverage over a third of the time in the first half, that's stupid. So I think there were some big scheme issues where the coaching staff did not rise to the moment, and that those are Mike Tomlin's words, essentially, not mine.
Mike Tomlin was asked if he ever gave thought about benching Ben Roethlisberger late in that game. You just wasting air asking those questions. You're also
going to say yes.
You're also wasting air asking about Ben Roethlisberger practicing on Wednesday. I mean, that's a given, right? I mean, why would you even ask questions? And Tomlin gave a polite response, I guess, to both of them. Well, the one was a short answer. No, I did not ever give, no, I didn't, give thought to that, benching Roethlisberger. And then, went on to talk about on Wednesday because of, they know Roethlisberger, and it gives the other quarterbacks time to some first team reps on that Wednesday. And also helps save the wear and tear on Roethlisberger's arm as the season goes along, so he doesn't have to answer a question about arm fatigue, yada, yada. So those obvious questions aside, what did you think about the answer to Najee Harris? Said a lot of the passes that he caught were against the Bengals were results of checkdowns. What's happening in the passing game that isn't developing downfield? Blah blah blah. What did you think about the long answer that he gave to that?
Yeah, I think it was largely true. I don't think receivers got open. I don't think they created much separation, and it really kind of forced Ben to hit the check down options as much as he did. And that obviously was led by Harris with 19 targets and 14 catches. So I don't disagree with the assessment there.
All right. What else did Mike Tomlin answer questions about that caught your eye?
Well, one thing that caused a little bit of and I use an old-timey word here, maybe a scuttlebutt with Mike Tomlin and Najee Harris was, talking about the run game and why it's not working. And Tomlin, I think, tried to defend the run game to an extent and say that there are some, runs that are happening, but either they're getting called back on penalties, which happened numerous times, especially in the first half against the Bengals, and also said it's not all on the offensive line. Says Najee Harris might have missed some holes as well, and he said that Harris would be the first one to admit that. And we had a clip actually before the presser that showed one of the worst misses I've seen from a running back in quite some time. I'm not trying to be overly critical of Harris. I think he's played well overall, but a play where he's got to get vertical and bounce it outside and went nowhere and kind of missed up an opportunity for a big gain on that play. And so that seemed to generate some traffic and some buzz over on Steelers Depot.
Yeah, and I pointed out, I think, one a couple of weeks ago about him not doing a good job, maybe pressing the line, and possibly, I think even another one where it looked like he maybe missed a potential hole in there. And yeah, I got a lot. Boy, you can't knock on those first round draft picks, can you? Without some serious pushback. A lot of people don't like us knocking on Najee Harris, but I don't want to say it felt rewarding to have the head coach do that, but more, I guess, validation that what we are seeing. Look, I mean, Najee's a very talented back. I mean,
I think he's played well. I think he's done well.
Outside of the drops the other day, I thought he played relatively well too. But and I think this is a point that we've been trying to make really over the first two games, and then obviously coming out of this third one as well too. Is it's a lot of everything here. It's not just the offensive line. It's scheme sometimes. It's and then there are instances too where Najee has not where his NFL inexperience is and not running behind that line a lot has played into this as well too. So there is blame to go around several different directions. We're not pinning this thing entirely on Najee Harris. No, look, I mean there were some runs in that game against the Bengals that you even wonder. The argument can be made if there's no hold, if a hold's not made, does the play still turn out the way it did?
Just like a Danish joke.
So
don't know if that.
You don't know Caddyshack, do you?
Is that from Caddyshack? No, apparently not. Then
okay. You need to YouTube that one. But
is that where the joke comes from?
It's the old philosopher. Is it Basho? I think where that stems from. But a donut without a hole. How does it go?
It's a donut without a hole is a Danish.
Right, and anyway, you have to YouTube. I don't want to get deep into that one because you'll send me down a Caddyshack hole that I don't want to go down. Right. But YouTube that clip there. But anyway, I get where you're coming from. But are some of those runs the other day successful without the holds? Now, the longest run of the day. They missed the Kevin Dotson hold. I don't know if you looked at that one. There was a little bit of a grab of the jersey there, and it makes you kind of wonder, does Najee break maybe an arm tackle? You would hope that he does on a situation like that. But I guess what I'm getting at there is there is a lot of blame to go around as far as why this running game is not working. And Mike Tomlin correctly said that some of these times it's on Najee.
Yeah, I think the point I'm trying to make is that it is the popcorn of the run game. If it was just, I wish if it was one guy. I wish I could just sit here and say that, man, it's just Kendrick Green. It's just Chooks. It's just the back.
Well, it is one guy, but unfortunately, it's one guy every play.
Right. Yeah. If it was just one guy every play, like you could fix that by replacing him or somehow overcoming that with scheme. But yeah, it's one guy this play, it's one guy the next. The scheme thing, it's a player thing, and so usually when things are this bad and this run game is that bad, it's rarely just one guy. It usually means that it's a unit wide failure of coaching and players. And so I don't bring up this point to needlessly bash Harris, but to say that even Harris, as well as he's played, has had his own issues as well. And it just kind of shows that it's truly, and some guys are better than others. Harris is better than, Benny Snell. I think Kendrick Green's struggling pretty mightily out there, more so than, say, Kevin Dotson or Trey Turner. But it's not, you can't point the finger at one guy.
And make no mistake about it, and I've taken some flack for putting this out on Twitter the other day. It's been an atrocious start to Kendrick Green's career, if you ask me. First 3 games. I mean, now, will the kid get stronger? Yes. Do you throw him out with the bathwater just yet? No, you don't. But there are going to be more growing pains on the way before I think you start seeing hopefully there's improvement. But there are going to be a lot more growing. This is not going to get fixed, I don't feel, overnight with Kendrick Green. Look, this is a kid that center was not his primary position in college there, having to get used to the nuances of the line calls and the speed of the game and snapping and then blocking and, just playing against higher quality guys overall, and I think you did a great job, and it's on Steelers Depot this morning there is breaking down just how bad of a game. Look, there were instances at Illinois, even at center with him, where we saw him make good reach blocks, right? And some even where it looked like you're dealing more with, let's say, like a 3-eye, a really wide 3-tech where him being able to reach. But those are college guys trying to reach a 3-tech at the NFL level. You got to be good. And I don't think we've seen many, if any, instances of him, at least maybe making the reach, but not sustaining the reach.
Yeah, I think even just getting to that point and cutting off the block, it's been tough for him to do. And he was billed as a good athlete. And you're right, they are very difficult blocks to execute. But, I think he's capable of doing it. So, the issues go, they're all over the place. They're in pass pro. They're dealing with strength. They're dealing with staying square, getting to square and in front of the block and things like that. Staying on his feet and all those kinds of things. So the issues really run deep, and we kind of illustrate that in a fairly lengthy video over on Steelers Depot. But to the broader point, to the run game, there were plays where you can point to Harris, you can point to Green, you can point to Scheme, you can point to all these guys. And when you have those kind of issues, you get the worst rushing attack in football, which is where Pittsburgh's sitting at right now.
Are you surprised this is bad? I mean, look, we warned people that this offensive line was going to have some issues, especially first quarter of the season here, on into first possible half of the season there. And obviously a byproduct of that was probably not going to be the run game, having a lot of success. Are you surprised at how bad it's been?
I am. My guess heading into the season was they'd be a little worse in pass pro and a little bit better in the run game. And they have been worse to me in pass pro compared to last year's unit. And they have been also worse in run blocking, or about the same, at least more variance, maybe a little bit better at its best, but a lot more negative plays as well. I thought this run game would go forward because I just thought it couldn't get any worse. And I was wrong about that.
I mean, I was with you. I mean, I didn't expect it to start out, middle of the league there, but it's been pretty bad, man.
I thought they could at least have an average run game this year.
I mean, it's been bad. I mean, bad. I mean, when you're celebrating the limited amount of success rates that Najee has had, with 4 or 5 of those runs being 2-yard gains.
Yeah. What's his success rate for the season on his 40 carries?
I mean, 30-something%, 32 really? Or 33. I forget what the number. I think I rattled it off the other day there. Not great, Bob. I mean, even if you would have told me, I would have said, okay, if you told me ahead of the season at this point, it'd be 40, 42%, or even 38%, I would have nodded my head and say, okay, all right, maybe. But I mean, below that, I mean, that's atrocious, man. And a lot of what's happening, we've said that they need a semblance of a running game, especially on 1st and 10 situations here, because you've got to get your veteran quarterback and your play caller in situations where you're not really so predictable what you're having to do there. When you're in 2nd and 8 and 2nd and 7 or 2nd and 12, 11, I mean, that's extremely hard. It's hard enough on most any offense. It's extremely hard on this offense right now with Ben Roethlisberger and the limitations and the line and all like that on top of it. So it's a huge snowball effect there. And they've got to find a way to start getting 4 more yards on first down. I don't care how you do it, but you better figure out a way to do it. If not, you're going to get more of the same here. And just one play is not enough. You're going to have a success rate on first down that really is noticeable throughout a game to make a difference.
Yeah, the first down number is the one I've really circled and talked about all last week leading up to the Bengals game, and only got worse against Cincinnati. For the season, this team is averaging, I believe, 3.7 yards on first down, and that's 31st in the NFL. The only team worse than them are Chicago, who passed for a net of 1 yard against the Browns in Week 3. So they're better than the team who passed for 1 yard, and that's it, which kind of sums up where this team is at. And we knew for this team to have a chance, it'd be about the O-line playing better and a run game existing, and without that, you really have no chance. So the bottom line is, until this run game gets on track, this offense, this team really has not much of a chance.
Yeah, and plain and simple. And people say, well, can you throw to open up the run? That's the age-old football Joe response. Just throw to open up the run.
I mean, you can, but if that was true, at least in Pittsburgh, they would have run the ball well last year, because all they did was throw the football, and all they're doing now is throwing the football. And so that sounds good in theory, I guess, but in practice, if you're still not executing your blocks and doing your job and stuff like that, then that stuff doesn't really matter that much. And especially because this team isn't like they're throwing deep effectively either. So throwing the football and throwing 5-yard slants is different than throwing 40-yard bombs. It's such a defense forcing to play too high and things like that.
What's the unfortunately the best way for this team to start, and it's going to sound so simple, the best way to start running the ball better is to start running the ball better. And I know that sounds silly, but I mean, they're just going to have to start executing their staple stuff a lot better.
But what is their staple stuff? I don't know what their staple stuff even is. They don't have staple stuff.
The only thing they seem to run half-ass good is stuff, tosses and stuff around the edge, pin and put stuff outside the tackles.
Has that even been good? I mean, they did it last week, and
if you eliminate the holds,
how was the rest of the play, Mrs. Lincoln? They ran the toss last week, and Green gets called for the hold, and they bring that one back. I mean, if the hold didn't exist, it would have been a decent run. But I mean, I think power. I think some of the gap stuff with Dotson pulling has worked okay. When it works, it's worked well.
But there hasn't been much of that. I mean,
right? Yeah. I mean, nothing's been good. I'm just trying to think the best thing they do. But we talk about staple stuff. I don't know what that staple stuff is because it's a brand new unit and nothing's really effective right now consistently.
I don't see how you can trust running anything between the guards right now.
Yeah. So.
I mean, and as you stated, I mean, you're inviting it to get worse when you're putting a fullback and extra tight end on the field.
At least in the Bengals game. I think you could do that maybe against Green Bay because the way they may approach two back is different than the Bengals. But the Bengals approach it in a very obvious and clear sellout kind of way. And Pittsburgh decided, yep, let's try it. We know we're going to run into a brick wall, but we're going to do it anyway, which is just insanity.
But even if you do try to put how many times are you actually going to go 21 in the first half of a game?
Yeah, I mean, they did it, 4 times last week, but you give me 4 decent runs, and I'll take it at that point. So, I'm not opposed to the idea. I just think doing it against the Bengals was a bad idea, and I also don't believe it's the cure-all for this team just by putting Derek Watt out there. I mean, that's not going to fix all the ills of this team, which are many.
I mean, I think you got to try to maybe you got a young offensive line. I think you got to try to How did it feel watching the Bengals run wide zone all that time? And it just looked so simple, and the cutback lanes and they just made it look so easy. I mean, is that something the Steelers need to work on? Just getting those guys on the move and at least stretching out the defense some to see what the running back can do at that point.
Yeah, my overall approach is, and there are no easy answers here, otherwise the team would be doing them, is to spread things out. I think the lighter boxes you can get, the more space you can give a back like Najee Harris to try to win one-on-one, the better. And that's just my overall big picture approach. I think, going tighter and inviting more guys into the box is just a recipe for disaster for this team because it relies on more guys to do their job, and the hold their blocks a little bit longer and just creates more trash and chaos for Najee to deal with. So the overall approach, and just a very broad one at that, is just kind of spread things out, and that's probably, to me, the best chance to try to get the run game going.
But when's the last time this team's been a heavy wide zone running team? Before you were born?
Yeah, back in the Jim Clack, Moon Mullins days. I don't know. It's been a while.
I think you really need to think about that because you're not gonna block a seal here or a seal here. They can't execute that, especially between the guards, man. Maybe pull Dotson a little bit more. Maybe try some more pin and pull on the outside, right?
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I think they should do more gap stuff than zone stuff at this point. But I mean, nothing's working, obviously. So We're all just trying to figure this thing out. But it goes back to the comment about staple stuff. I mean, they don't even have anything staple right now to kind of lean on. So that's the problem.
Run that 39 boss, man. Pull Dotson out of there and try to get Najee out on the edge that way.
And that's what Dan Crowder, right? He's around. He's in Manheim, PA. That's not too far from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to put the fullback on the field or something like that, try to run some of that boss stuff where that guard just pulls out of that hole and pulls to the same side, and maybe try some more pin and pull stuff, and maybe try some outside zone. I mean, that's the only answer I have for it right now at this point.
Yeah, it's floundering, obviously. So anyway, Mike Tomlin, anything else? I kind of talked about the run game quite a bit there. Anything else Tomlin had to say that was notable from his Tuesday presser, Dave?
I don't feel like it. Am I missing anything?
No, he did deflect the comments made by Bengals wide receiver Tyler Boyd, who accused Pittsburgh of quitting the last couple of plays with those 3 drops to close out the game. And Tomlin, in so many words, said he does not care about what Tyler Boyd has to say.
Don't think that he's just brushing those aside, though. Those will be brought back up at a later date, week 12, I'm sure.
You're saying it like a bulletin board material.
Yeah. I mean, you can bet he'll remind the team, but why, by week 12, you wonder, will it matter?
It was a very strange feeling on Sunday. It felt like the Steelers were the Bengals of old, and the Bengals were the Steelers of old.
Especially in that second half, man. To watch the Bengals run that wide zone the way they did, and to watch a quarterback just not have to drop back and pass every down. A very efficient game on Joe Burrow's part there, and it just seemed like everything that when they needed to make a play offensively, they were able to make the play offensively. That quick slant to Evans on the 3rd and 3 or 4 or whatever it was just seemed pretty damn flawless, and just everything the Steelers tried to do offensively just felt like it's felt all year, real clunky.
Yeah, but even just like the swagger, the mentality, and the Bengals saying they quit, and and obviously that happens in wins and losses, but it just the vibe of it just felt very flipped from where it was before.
This is a team missing a good wide receiver in T. Higgins, a team that no longer has a threat in Tyler. Did a tight end even catch a ball in that game?
They only completed 14 passes. I don't know if
you remember going into Bengals games? It used to be, you watch out for the tight ends, and especially during the Hugh era there and all. But they basically beat them with Jamar Chase and Joe Mixon. Period.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. I don't believe a tight end caught a pass. Uzama was targeted once, did not catch it, and no tight end caught a pass for the Bengals.
Right, and as you stated, they didn't complete many didn't have to complete really many. 14 of 18 overall. I'm trying to think of what the misses were.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so that kind of day. So I think it's probably good from Tomlin there. I know Ben has already spoken with the media this morning. I haven't seen a full video or transcript of that yet. I don't think he said anything too crazy, obviously. Just kind of said the players have to get better, so standard fare there. But it's also accurate. The players do need to get better. So we'll cover Ben a little bit later today on Steelers Depot.
All right, where to now? Should we all 22, or do we need to talk to Tom here, or what?
Yeah, let's talk all 22, and then we'll talk to Tom afterwards a little bit later in the show. So, yeah, I mentioned the run game quite a bit. I think we talked about the ills there for this run game overall. To me, Dave, when I look at the Steelers offense, I'm trying to see what the issues are. Obviously they're multiple in so many ways, but guys just are not getting open. And certainly, I think, as you mentioned, you kind of felt like you felt the absence of Deontay Johnson, your best route runner, the team's best separator. But I think schematically did them no favors of getting guys open, and the players themselves really just created very little separation, and it really forced Ben to hold on to the football and hit his check down so often. And Ben did not play well. Again, not absolving him here either, but just did not really see any separation by the Steelers receivers against that Bengals secondary.
Yeah, when you did see the separation, the Washington on the outside in the second half, Ben overthrows him. Now there was a little. What'd you think about the pressure overall on that play, the affecting the throw? The quarterback, you got to step up and make that throw. But, I think Ben's now a little gun shy, most definitely, about stepping up into packed pockets there. You still got to make that throw down the left side, right?
Yeah, there was pressure, but it's not like the pressure got to him in a way that it underthrew the football. Usually when there's pressure, the ball is offline or it hangs or something like that. It fell in front of Washington. So, there was pressure, but it didn't really seem like, to me, it impacted the throw in any substantial way.
What'd you think about the hospital ball out there to Chase Claypool on the left side?
Yeah, that was just a bad ball from Ben. That ball's got to be outside shoulder to the sideline. Instead, it's inside, and Claypool's got to reach back forward and takes a big shot there by the Bengals corner or whoever the DB was. So, I mean, that's just Ben, with some poor placement on that throw.
All right, and then I finally came across this last night and meant to talk about it. I think the other day there, the red zone on the corner post route to Chase Claypool down the left-hand side there. Clearly separation. Now they did run that stunt up front there, and Reader Dotson's got to do a much better job of handling that than he did, and Ben took a helmet right to the right to where you don't want Ben to take the helmet at, right there in the right below the neck there, but Ben's got to make that throw too, right?
Yeah, I think Claypool ran the right route, ran a good route, and the pressure, I assume, probably impacted the accuracy of that throw because that ball is outside and that ball's got to be inside. So, I mean, yeah, there certainly were moments where they threw the ball 60 times, so I would hope on some plays guys got separation, but just generally speaking, overall, there weren't a lot of open receivers in this game. I think schematically, it's an issue that I had with Fichtner and Haley. A lot of routes kind of being independent of each other and trusting that the guys are going to win their one-on-one matchups. But I think you really have to scheme these guys open more with more interesting and stressful and conflict-creating route combinations, especially if you want to win middle of the field, which, as we've talked about, this team has done really nothing of even attempting those passes. And so I think go ahead.
You see some of this level stuff and some of this flood stuff, which you understand why, right? I mean, especially if you're going to roll out your quarterback on occasion, which they seem to be doing a little bit of with Ben there. You're flooding sides of that thing. You want to give Ben kind of 3 layers to go to there. But even stuff like, when they're doing stuff like that, it's not conflicting the deep safety at all. It seems to get that stuff seems to be very easily covered up on the defensive side of football. And then you're not seeing any kind of, I don't know, dagger concept, Mills concept, any stuff and single high stuff. You're not seeing anything, at least I'm not, and at least not where I can count on more than one hand, of anything that's conflicting a middle of the field safety.
No, I'm with you 100%. I mean, I can't even count on one hand some of those concepts. I mean, it's just a couple of fingers. I
guess what I'm getting at is and this is no absolving Ben whatsoever here, but it's easy for us to post a pass chart for one game or 3 game aggregate or even a 6 game aggregate that says Ben's not throwing to the middle of the field past 14 yards past the line of scrimmage, 5 yards outside the hash marks. Either way there, all right? I mean, the passing charts do not lie. I mean, they're not being attacked. But on the flip side, you have to have things run into that area to be able to even have the ability to attack that. And they're not doing that hardly any on a game by game basis, especially past, let's say, 13 yards. I mean, right. Look at what Aaron Rodgers drilled the other day. I mean, you look at that and you drool. I told all the guys, do not watch the Los Angeles Rams tape because my insurance does not cover that. Because you see what I'm getting at there, and obviously, look, it takes time to develop. I mean, to run a 15 or 18 yard dig. It takes time for that to develop, right? And,
sure.
And a dagger concept or a Mills concept or something like that. They're not even doing anything to try to attack the middle field. And I know you've written and talked about how a lot of teams are running middle of the field closed. And look, I think in certain aspect of the Bengals game, you see them kind of flood. They invite Ben to throw outside. They want the MO on Ben is you want to beat us. Well, you're going to have to make 3 or 4 throws down the sideline, more than 15 yards, and you're going to have to connect on those. And we're willing to bet that you can't do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think you're right about the lack of middle of the field usage, but the question is why? Why aren't those routes being designed to run that way? Because it's before Canada. It happened under Haley, happened under Fietner, happening under Canada right now. And I'm sure they're well aware of that fact that they're not using that real estate very often. But the question is why? Is there a scheme-related reason? Is it a Ben-related reason? I don't have the answer to that, but I'm more interested in the why or why not, as opposed to just the fact that they aren't doing it.
And now look, is every play single high safety? No. I mean, but what you'll see a lot of is you'll see a lot of initial single high looks and then them rotate the safeties into, either a two deep or a quarter half or just flat out quarters type situation there. But I think predominantly you're seeing single high stuff on passing downs, especially the long situations that they're getting into. What way would you recommend them trying to attack a single high, whether it be cover three or single high look?
Yeah, it's just about putting that guy in conflict with some sort of high-low, as you said, levels or mills where you're running a dig and a post route. So the safety's got either maybe he creeps up on the dig and the post opens up underneath. So, I mean, there are still ways to attack it. I understand why they have attacked more of the outside than they have the middle of the field, but there are still some things schematically they can do to try to, stress that deep safety and put him in conflict the way that the Raiders did, for example, on that Henry Ruggs 61-yard touchdown back in week 2. So, I mean, there are things that can be done that obviously are not happening. I just think overall the routes are too independent of each other and guys are just not winning their one-on-one kind of matchups.
Even if they were to scheme this up, can they block it up?
Yeah, that's a question. I mean, that's going to be the counter is do they have the protection to hold it up? But, I mean, what else are you going to do? You're going to try it and just hope you can block it up.
I mean, we saw in this game, especially against the Bengals, we've seen it a couple times this year. Max protect into a sack.
Yeah, there were multiple occasions of that against the Bengals. 2-man routes, max protect, and no one's getting open, and Ben holds on to the football, and the play goes nowhere. Chase Claypool had a really interesting comment. I think on Monday, he says, "quote I think it's just weird because when we try to go outside, they play too high. When we try to go inside, they go one high. So just timing it up, kind of anticipating what they're going to do. Kind of says that no matter what the Steelers are doing, the defense always seems to have the right answer for it, which kind of sounds like and I don't like to use this word too often because it's kind of more of a vague catch-all, but some predictability with this offense where defenses are really having a good scouting report on what Pittsburgh's trying to do and playing the right coverages to take it away.
Why do we see things like we watch? The worst thing that we can do is after a Steelers game is to get a nice Sunday night or Monday night game. And you see things like the Cowboys draw up that switch release with the tight end. I mean, and they just get easy throws down the field there. And then even, and I hate to keep going back to that play against the 49ers in overtime there where and Aaron Rodgers talked about that on the Pat McAfee show, how they have these kind of, Genesis sessions. I forget what he called those on like Saturday and all, where they kind of work up kind of potential special plays. And that's all foreign to me, man. I can't envision that happening with the Steelers there. And really, it wasn't all that erotic, I guess you could say. You have a guy running a deep corner, a guy and he initially stems that to the inside to stress the safety, and then force the corner wide on to go with the wide receiver in the corner, and then you have the Devontae Adams run the deep dig, and then on the backside you just have really a half-ass run post pattern is all it was. It was just deep enough to carry both the corner and the safety to keep them out of the box. And what happens? You have a middle of the field throw that goes over an excellent linebacker in Warner in that situation. It just, for the Steelers to do something like that would seem cataclysmic right now.
Mm-hmm. Did you call it erotic?
Yes.
Okay.
I look at some of these route combinations as erotica. Really?
There's lust in your eyes.
I mean.
No, I get what you're saying.
When you see something like that on the All-22 and know that the Steelers don't and can't run it, I mean, right?
Yeah, they just feel very limited schematically, and I think there are some definite scheme issues for this team where they're not doing any favors. It goes back to his coaching overcoming the talent issues. No, are the players overcoming the scheme issues? No, and when both of those things are occurring, you get a really ugly looking offense.
I mean, we haven't even seen any, juju fade, slot fades, I don't think. I mean, I think they've tried to run it with Claypool a little bit. And look, it doesn't help that you're not getting deep separation down the field. Here, let me throw this. Let me before we switch over to the defensive side here, because we're beating this offense up pretty damn good. Would you maybe play Deontay more at the Z?
No, I like having him on the backside, trying to create separation, one-on-one matchups.
I think I might consider trying to run him out at the Z and try to get some deep separation that way. And
why can't you run him at the X and just run him vertical?
I think if you move him around a little bit there and then run and try to get him deep over the top that way on the Z, I think I would experiment with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just want him as the X to be that separator, and if we can make one guy miss, then hopefully you get a big play out of it on a slant or quick game or something like that.
Another element that they're missing or hasn't really come into play this year that helped them out last year was Claypool having some of those early season deep PI calls, right?
Right, but when you're an offense pining for PI calls and you're just Joe Flacco, and now you're just an offense that's just waiting on the refs to kind of bail you out.
But didn't that happen last year?
Yeah, no, it did. It did happen. It did help for sure. But I mean, you can't obviously build your offense around that intent.
I don't know if it worked. What else you gonna do?
Running the Joe Flacco offense. Yeah, at this point, I mean, no bad ideas in a brainstorm. But yeah, I mean, that speaks to just kind of the out of ideas nature of this offense right now. But it goes back to that lack of run game, because if you're, no matter what you're scheming up for this offense, if you're going to be in 3rd and 7+, then you're going to struggle. I mean, you might hit it occasionally a little bit more if you scheme things up better. But if you can't be better on first down and get a run game going, you're going to be backed up behind schedule and just really struggling the whole game.
What did you think about the 4 verts to the sticks?
Which play is that?
On the 3rd down, I think it was the first interception.
Yeah, it was like all kind of just curls. Everyone just kind of ran to the sticks and sat down. That's what I'm talking about, like routes being super independent of each other. There's no stress. There's no conflict. It's just hope that your guy wins and, create some space top of the route, and that's it. And that's one of the biggest complaints I had with Todd Haley, one of the biggest complaints I had with Randy Fichtner. And I'm not sure why it's happening under OC after OC, but I think you have to, start stressing defenders and putting those guys in conflict more, because especially without Deontay, those guys are not going to always win those one-on-one matchups.
Do you think Ben's maybe having too much input on what he likes and doesn't like? And that's because, look, we're not seeing, if you go back and look at a lot of the college tape on Matt Canada, obviously some of the stuff is dependent on the quarterback moving, right? Mm-hmm. But there are other elements that we're not even seeing on that. Do you think Ben maybe is having too much input on what he likes and is willing to do offensively?
Well, it's hard for me to speak to that exactly because I don't know exactly how those things work. I mean, obviously Ben has input on his offense, and the job of any good OC, any good coach is to play to the strengths of the personnel. So potentially, but I mean, how much input does Ben have on his offense? And I can't answer that.
We don't know,
kind of quantified way. So it's hard for me to really, this offense does look different in some respects. So Canada is trying to do some of the things he likes to do. But, how much is he doing that, is there more that he could be doing that he just feels like he can't do? I mean, I'm sure, but to what extent, I do not know.
What would you like to see maybe more? Because, look, I mean, I think we're spinning our wheels talking about daggers and Mills concept and stuff that attack. I mean, their version of attacking route concepts deep is just running Yankee.
Yeah, it really is. And not deep, but they ran like 4 shovel passes that game. I mean, they're a shovel pass-based offense, which is not a good place to be.
All right, and, I mean, there have been some instances maybe where Ben could have let 1 or 2 of those fly in some deep kind of crossing Yankee type over concepts all, but he, it feels like he's kind of hesitant sometimes to pull the trigger on that. What would you like to see as far as route combinations working in unison, maybe in a shorter passing game?
Yeah, more mesh against man-heavy teams. I've done a little bit of it.
We haven't seen a lot of that at all.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they played some more zone teams. I know they ran it once on Sunday, and it was against zone, and Juju sat down and got like 16 yards off of it. Yeah, I mean, just whether it's mesh, whether it's spot concepts, which I know they also ran, I think, once against the Bengals, at least once. Just something, though, that creates some more stress and conflict, whether that's more, pick routes, switch releases, things like that maybe help create guys off the line and get them some separation. But just something that seems to put these defenders in more conflict than what we're currently seeing.
We did see some conflict stuff out on the edge there on one of the corners there. Now, granted, the corner did sit right almost in the perfect position there, but there was an instance where Ben could have pulled the trigger over to the left side to I think it was Najee and Claypool, I think, on that side there. And he looked at it, and he didn't throw to either one of them, and then he waited and then hit Juju over the middle, and I think that was the play that Juju ended up getting his ribs cracked on there. But there are some instances, it feels like, where they are setting up a conflict guy and Ben's not making the throw.
Yeah, that brings up a point I had in my head watching the tape, and I don't think there's a stat for it. And we've been asked about it, and the thought's been in my head. Ben has always used the pump fake effectively. It's mostly been because he's deciding not to throw as opposed to he's trying to intentionally move somebody. It does feel like he's pump faking more this year. Like on that one play, I think on the sack. It was the one where I think he got sacked. Or it was the first interception by Logan Wilson. He pump faked to Claypool left side and pulled the ball back down. And it just feels like there is some more hesitation in terms of being unsure about when guys' routes are breaking and things like that. Because I feel like I'm seeing more of a pump fake this year.
I mean, boiling it all down, until they get a running game going where they can lean on heavily here and have success and get the offense in less predictable down and distance situations and staying consistently ahead of the chains. I mean, I don't know how to find much optimism here.
Yeah, that's the bottom line obviously Ben is not good enough. This offense is not wired and good enough to throw 40, 50 times and expect to win really any ball games.
And that what we said since all off season, you can't let that, you got to have a running game for him. You can't let him throw 40 times a game.
Yeah, I think most people understood that, but obviously it's not happening. And so that is the bottom line. We can talk about the rest of this stuff as much as we want, but if you're getting, if you're averaging 3 yards a carry, running the ball in general, and your success rate's 35%, then there's not a lot you're going to be able to do with that.
It really feels like the way they need to win games now is get a short field at least once or twice a game, and maybe pop that, and then Ben hitting 3 or 4 plays or getting a PI call. I don't think you can discount an explosive play in the Steelers offense as a PI call. I think that's part of what you need during the game now, an explosive play pass interference call. And then Ben hitting, maybe 2 other throws deep down the field that way. It feels like you almost have to have the perfect storm. And then, defense getting a turnover or maybe a special teams blocking a punt, or it feels like it just needs to be a special, a perfect storm for them to win a football game right now.
It's the same thing as we talked about in 2019 after Ben got hurt. That was the game plan, was defense has to make splash. Offense hopefully gets a chunk play some way or another, and you kind of just hope for the best and be in it late. And it's sad that you're in that same mode, even though Ben has returned, and theoretically things should have gotten better.
And look, I still think the right decision was Ben coming back. I still think that he's the quarterback that gives you the best chance to win right now on any given Sunday, but it's obviously diminished, and it's super reliant on a running game and the offensive line playing better. For starters.
Yeah, that was the whole intent. If you had a decent run game, obviously Ben, I think, would look a lot better. So that was the whole goal of this offseason, was let's get a run game back on track. Get at least to an average group that runs a little more effectively, a little more efficiently, more balanced for this offense, and things would look different. But this run game has gotten worse somehow, and so the whole idea and the whole plan is out the window.
All right, defensive. We beat. People are probably tired of us beating on the offense. Defensively, what'd you see?
Well, I mean, it wasn't a whole lot better defensively. I mean, it was, I guess, better, but I mean, they didn't have to run a lot.
Only 42 plays, you know.
Yeah, right. 39. If you exclude the 3 kneel downs. Yeah, I think some of the zone cutback stuff really hurt him. I think Jameer Jones especially struggled there. I think it's the big reason why he got cut yesterday was he did not squeeze the backside of some of those runs well. Mixon's a good runner. Some of those zone runs, he just kind of found the lane and cut back and things like that. Obviously, you know, when you have Mondo out there and he's struggling a good bit to hold the point of attack, you're feeling the run defense some overall. And then on the touchdowns, I mean, yeah, you know, Pierre gets beat at the end of that one, and the other touchdown to Chase was a cover one, or Minka doubles a guy in the middle of the field is wide open. That's a really, really tough play for Hayden. Burrow has all day in the pocket and makes a very easy throw over the middle. If
this defense can't get pressure with 4-man, and they obviously couldn't with their 4-man rushes the other day or
even 5. They tried to go 5 more often. And they still couldn't get him.
And they can't get pressure in those situations, then you know, then you're putting more stress on the back end. And
they played a ton of cover 1 Sunday with a 5-man rush to try to get home.
Okay, well then we saw what that brought them, and once again they didn't have to run all that many plays because in key situations they were getting successful runs too, and plus that kept the Steelers defense on their heels a lot because there was a lot of, you know, second and, you know, 5 or less situations, you know.
Yeah, the Bengals offense, I thought, did a good job of staying on schedule with a good run game, especially in the first half of that one, and, you know, got the ball in the end zone. You know, Steelers had missed tackles. The touchdown to Boyd, Ingram goes for the big hit, can't make the tackle, no one else is there to wrap and rally. That was a pretty, I think, lazy play all around by the Steelers defense. And, yeah, just some easy completions for Burrow and the Bengals.
And look, on that touchdown, I mean, yeah, Pierre probably's got to open. You got to know the situation more than anything else there. It's okay to play that over the top or you know, defend that aggressively, not to get beat in that situation because of the game situation there, right? You know, you can't get beat over the top with a minute left in, you know, less than a minute left in the first half in those situations there. And Chase said that he kind of saw that the way Pierre wasn't, you know, opening up and, you know, getting into a full stride with him. Now, make no mistake, that was still a tough catch, and it was a great throw by Burrow there. It took a perfect throw and catch to beat you, but it still beats you. And just in that part of the game situation there, you can't get beat deep in that situation.
Yeah, I think schematically the call was fine. I think the intent was to not get beat deep, but Pierre can be a little aggressive with those eyes, and he was trying to, you know, stay in that kind of build technique shuffle as long as he could to read the quarterback, and just turned a little bit late. And, you know, it's just when you got a guy like Chase who runs 4.3, whatever he runs, I mean, that last burst of speed, those last 5 yards really got to Pierre on that one, and that made a difference in the play.
And look, you're going to face an offense this week in the Packers that not only has a quarterback that can rip you to shreds if he has time, but a running game that, you know, I would think Aaron Jones is on the same level, if not better than Mixon.
Yeah, he's a bigger threat in the pass game. He's a more versatile option, but a very talented back in his own right. And you'll have a great receiver in Devontae Adams and some speed at receiver with Valdez-Scantling, who ran 4.37 at his pro day. And so speed has been an issue. Keeping a lid on things has been an issue the last 2 weeks, and so it can't be an issue again.
How much do the Steelers miss not having a Mike Wallace?
Yeah, we talked about this on a Friday show.
Yeah, a couple shows ago.
Whatever it was. Yeah, I mean, every team would benefit by having that true and blue burner. So that would be nice to have for sure. But those guys obviously don't grow on trees.
All right, you know, without a doubt, they got to get Highsmith and Watt back on the field this week. It would be nice at some point to get Tuitt back. They really missed that aspect of it as well too. But they're going to go how this defense tells them they're going to go, I think. Moving forward here. If this defense can keep the score down, make some plays, get some short fields, the Steelers will be in games. If they don't, then Steelers aren't going to be in games.
Yeah, last point on the defense. I don't know how many pass plays were out of this. I'll have to check my charting, but Cam Hayward was basically playing nose tackle in this game. Like he played a ton of actual nose tackle. And so I wonder if that kind of impacted his pass rush a bit by, you know, playing over center and maybe taking on some more double teams than usually, you know, he normally gets, kind of being solo up on the guard more often.
Bugs was always just kind of an also ran in that game to me. I mean, he didn't play, I don't think, overly poor, but didn't stick out a lot either.
Yeah, I thought he was okay, but I mean, no one really stuck out in a positive way. The interception that they forced was nice. Bush did a good job. Minka did a good job. Edmonds capitalizes, but that's about it.
All right. Anything else to wrap up the defense, Alex? All 22?
No, I think that covers it pretty well. So I think we should move on here to our guest of the day. That is Tom Silverstein from the Milwaukee Sentinel, Packers beat writer. You can follow him on Twitter at Tom Silverstein. He covers the Packers for a long time now, and he has a live blog during Packers games. That's packersnews.com. So well-respected beat writer, is one of the top in the country in our opinion. So let's talk to Tom and come back in a moment.
Okay, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Wednesday, and that means we talk to a beat writer from the team that the Pittsburgh Steelers will be playing this week. It is week 4. The Steelers will travel to Lambeau Field to play the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers and company. We are pleased to have on for the first time ever on this show, and boy, this show's been around a while. We've had several really esteemed beat writers on. We're adding another one to that list in Tom Silverstein. Tom covers the Green Bay Packers and has for quite a while for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. You can follow Tom on the Twitter machine at Tom Silverstein. We'll have that link in the post on SteelersDepot.com as well there too. So with that big grand entrance there, welcome Tom to the Terrible Podcast. How are you on this Wednesday morning?
Thanks. It's a beautiful day in Wisconsin, and I'm happy to be with you guys.
All right, absolutely, and I think you're going to get a lot of good feedback from our listeners here. Tom, let's start with first and foremost, kind of from a 30,000-foot view. I guess the Packers' offseason was mostly centered around, Aaron Rodgers. Is he going to play? Is he going to retire? Are the Packers going to trade him? Obviously, we all know how that ended up turning out now. Did that go kind of the way you thought it would turn out there? And how do you feel about the way it turned out?
Well, I really did think that he was very serious about never playing for the Packers. And I thought early on that there was very little chance that he would come back, that he was really dug in, just knowing who he is and what his personality's like, and he can be a stubborn guy. I thought there was no way he was going to play. But as time wore on, you started to understand that you saw with Russell Wilson, you saw with Deshaun Watson. The NFL is a very powerful corporation, and it's hard to go head-to-head against them, by yourself. And ultimately, they have so much power in punishing players for holdouts and, fining them and taking their signing bonuses back, that eventually it just became clear that if he wanted to play, it was going to have to be in Green Bay because they weren't going to trade him. And so, as time wore on, you started to see this shift. And ultimately, I thought he would get more out of it. I thought he would end up getting some kind of contractual change. But really, nothing really changed other than they removed 1 year from his deal, which means, next year the Packers will have to make a decision on him, on whether they're going to trade him or let him play out his contract.
I hate to fast forward right into the game the other night against the 49ers, but I mean, how can we not talk about that, especially that last drive there? Tom, you've watched a lot of Aaron Rodgers games, a lot of his, obviously late game comebacks and comeback victories. Where does that one rank up in there? I mean, that throw that he made to Davante Adams, kind of on that corner dig there to, I guess, the play before the final play that got him into field goal range there. Where does that drive kind of rank there in all-time Aaron Rodgers game-winning drives?
Well, it was a really remarkable drive. if you look at Aaron Rodgers' career, he hasn't had a lot of spectacular comeback drives. A lot of times he's just been good over the course of a game and been, consistent. So when it came time to, maybe they were down in the fourth quarter, he got them into the end zone and got them in the lead, and then maybe they hung on. There haven't been a lot of classic ones like this. This was more like, 37 seconds left. Can he push them down far enough to get a field goal? And it looked remarkably easy. I don't know. I do a video with former Packer Leroy Butler, and we break down certain plays, and we broke down that play that you're speaking of. You can find that on our website at JS Online or on Twitter. It's X's and O's with Leroy Butler. And the thing about it was the throw had to be perfect, and the catch was really, really magnificent. And it's really the combination of him and Davante Adams, who have just taken, their chemistry to another level. And Rodgers had a couple of just beautiful throws in this game. It wasn't a classic Rodgers game where he was all just dominant, but when he needed to be dominant, he was.
Tom, speaking of Davante Adams, I wanted to ask about him. Far and away the leader on this team in receptions, targets. Everyone knows he's getting the football a lot each week. Do they have to work extra hard to scheme him up to get him open, or is the talent so great with Rodgers and Adams' skill set that he just gets open on his own, or is there a real effort to need to scheme him open to get him the football?
What really gets him open is Aaron Jones. So, in the times when Aaron Jones is a threat, the passing game is so much better for the Packers. In the opener against New Orleans, they were just bad all over the place, but they never got the run game going. And, then it becomes a matter of forcing the ball to Davante Adams. But in this game, Jones was getting consistent yardage. He was producing a threat. He was allowing them to run their play action, which is huge. And Davante Adams was getting open naturally through all of that. And that's when they're at their best. They have two really dynamic players in Adams and Jones. And when they're both playing, they're working off each other. So that's really what was happening against the 49ers.
You mentioned the run game being a big difference from week one to the last two, and obviously you had that ugly week one loss to the Saints, really bounced back since. So have there been other key differences that you've seen to turn the tide that have looked different in the last 2 weeks compared to that terrible opener against New Orleans?
Well, they played a little bit better on defense against the 49ers, but I would say that they were willing to, or they were able to get a couple of big plays to Allen Lazard, the wide receivers Allen Lazard and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. And what that did, and really you could see it in those last couple of plays, is it made the 49ers honor them. And you could see the safeties honor Randall Cobb on that first play of that drive. That's what opens it up for Davante Adams to run that dig route. And, otherwise, if this guy's honoring Randall Cobb going deep, the safety, then he probably comes in and breaks that pass up. So it's important for them to get their other receivers in the game as well. Lazard had like a 40-yard completion early on, and then so did MVS. And when they're doing that, then it kind of makes the safeties think a little bit about how much they can double and triple Adams.
Tom, a few weeks ago, the Steelers played the Raiders, and obviously Darren Waller was one of their main concerns, and the Steelers pretty much did a good job overall of really kind of bracketing Waller throughout that game, and I think held him something to like 6 catches for, I forget, 69 yards, something around there, and obviously kept him, I think, out of the end zone as well too. Is that kind of the best approach for the Steelers to take with Devontae Adams, on Sunday in Green Bay, is at least try to limit? I mean, you're not going to shut Devontae Adams out. I mean, you're not going to shut him down completely. But if you can hold him to something like seven catches for 79 yards and keep him out of the end zone, is that the best way to initially kind of defend, and then just hope that your 4-man pass rush can get after Aaron Rodgers, and then that you kind of limit the running game with Aaron Jones there? Is that the best way to kind of go after this Packers offense?
Yeah, and that's exactly what all 3 opponents have done this year. So they have seen nothing but cover 2 almost every single down. So teams are playing both safeties, and it was significant against the 49ers because the 49ers play that cover 3 that Seattle plays, or did play, during their heyday, and they went to cover 2. So they went completely out of their comfort zone because they just decided they're going to play the pass game. And the mistake the Packers made in the first game against New Orleans, they went in there thinking that New Orleans was going to blitz them and come after them, and so they were ready for all of that. And what happened was they forgot to run the ball when they saw the cover 2. And, that's kind of, with Detroit, they figured it out a little bit more, and then sure enough, San Francisco came out with that. And again, if they can run it, now, if your front 4 can put pressure on Rodgers by itself, which is what New Orleans did, then it's a different story. Then all of a sudden those double teams are better because Rodgers doesn't have enough time to hold on to the ball and wait for Adams to clear. So I would suspect, based on what everybody else has done, that the Steelers will play their safeties back, and yeah, they'll bracket Adams any chance they can.
When you look at the offensive line, I know the Packers have had some jumbling there. I was a huge John Runyon fan, when he came out and all. I really think he's underrated there. What's going to be the shape of that offensive line this week? And kind of moving on from that, what do you expect the Wednesday injury report to look like?
Well, the big question mark again will be Elgton Jenkins, who is their left guard turned to left tackle. And he's their best offensive lineman right now. I mean, when David Bakhtiari comes back from PUP, he'll move right into left tackle, and he's one of the best left tackles in the league. Jenkins is a remarkable athlete who can play all 5 positions and has, but they've been playing him at left tackle, and then he got hurt against Detroit, so they had a choice of either shifting some guys around and going with a little bit more of a veteran line, or using a guy named Yosh Nijman, who's a 6'7", 315-pound guy, really good feet, but raw as raw can be. And they decided to go with him. And he did a fairly good job against Nick Bosa. He got a lot of help, but he had to block Bosa one-on-one. So the thing we'll be looking for today on the injury report is whether Elgton Jenkins does anything. I kind of have the feeling he's not, that they might have to go with Nijman again this week. And Runyon would start at left guard if that's the case. Well, Runyon will start at left guard no matter what. And that's kind of an interesting story, too, because he didn't have a very good training camp. And he lost the starting left guard job. And he lost the starting right guard. But then all of a sudden he had to play. And he must be a game performer more than a practice guy, because he's been pretty good the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, playing like his dad was, for sure. Speaking of injuries, Tom, one of the biggest ones the Green Bay's had is a Darius Smith who got placed on IR after trying to play a little bit in Week 1. I know the Packers pass rush has really suffered because of it. How are they trying to compensate for not having Smith out there, and who is, if there is anybody, their top pass rush threat right now?
Yeah, they need him back in the worst way. So Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary are their two outside rushers. And Preston Smith's been decent. Rashawn Gary is still kind of a work in progress. He's a tremendously gifted athlete, very powerful, but he's still working on his pass rush moves. And there's times he wins with power, and then other times you see it's just not enough. He's got to develop some further moves. And the guy who's really kind of picked it up more than anybody has been Kenny Clark in the middle. I mean, he's a really good player anyways. He's one of the highest paid defensive nose tackles in the league. But he's been pretty hard to block, and he really did a job on Alex Mack. So that's kind of where they're getting their pressure. It's up the middle more than from the edges. They're not getting a lot of sacks, and they miss Darius Smith. I know Pittsburgh's having issues with their offensive line.
Oh yeah.
So I think we'll see Joe Barry, their defensive coordinator, probably stick with 4-man rushes, maybe 5 once in a while, and see what he can get out of that. But Gary and Preston Smith are the two guys to watch outside, and then Kenny Clark is the guy that they absolutely have to block because he will blow everything up in the middle.
Yeah, I'm worried about Steelers rookie center Kendrick Green on Kenny Clark. I think it's going to be a big matchup in favor of Green Bay. I want to switch to the secondary. What makes Jair Alexander such a good, smart corner? That interception he had against the 49ers, what a great read and finish. Dude's 24 years old. His plays really seem to take off. What makes him such an effective corner?
I think he's just, he does, it's funny, he does a lot of meditation. He's into yoga. And all these things, and you can just kind of see that nothing rattles him, and he's very in the moment. He plays his techniques. He knows how to play the game. He's a very smart player, and he's got really good feet, and he really knows how to play the ball. Now he's not. It's not like you can't beat him. I mean, he gave up a touchdown in that game, but it's really hard to beat him deep. He's just really good at reading routes and understanding routes. And if you're going to beat him, it's probably going to be trying to get him on a quick breaking move where, he's maybe anticipating a deep route. He will battle against a big receiver. He's really good at playing the ball, but you can make some hay against him a little bit with a big receiver because he's not a big guy. So people don't test him a lot. They're going to probably test the rookie Eric Stokes on the other side, and then if Kevin King comes back, he'll play in the slot most likely, and he's had a really rough year. He's got a lot of he's got to make up some ground. He's not played real well. That's the guy they would pick on probably the most.
When you look at this defense, and outside of the defensive line and let's say the edge rushers from like the second level, the linebacking core on back there, who's the biggest X factor for that defense heading into this game? Is it Stokes? Is it Kevin King? I'm a huge Darnell Savage fan too. That guy should have probably been a Pittsburgh Steeler the way he plays, and the Steelers scouted him heavy. So huge Darnell Savage fan. But who's the biggest X factor, second, third level on that defense for the Packers this week?
I think it's probably their inside linebacker, Devondre Campbell. He's a guy they added late right before training camp. A veteran guy. He's been around. He was a starter in Arizona and in Atlanta. He's been playing really good, solid football, and I think he's probably going to have an assignment of covering Najee Harris when he goes out. And we know that's, you guys know it, and I know it, that's a huge assignment, is to keep him in check in the pass game. And Campbell's kind of their cover inside linebacker. And so they're going to have to try to find a way. He'll cover the tight end and he'll cover backs, but he also plays on the line of scrimmage sometimes. And so he's kind of an X factor for them. The safeties have been okay. Savage has been solid but not great, and Adrian Amos is just another solid player. Their secondary is, it can be vulnerable. They've been making some mistakes, communication errors. They're running a new defense, and you can see when they're, especially in the red zone, look for it there. They've made a lot of mistakes, coverage errors. And so I could see Roethlisberger having some success. They can get him down into the red zone.
When we're wrapping things up here with Tom Silverstein, covers the Packers for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Make sure you follow Tom on Twitter at Tom Silverstein, and we'll have him talk a little bit about here in a minute what else you can find on PackersNews.com of his. Tom, what is your identity been mostly in the back end of the secondary? We're going to be flipping on the All-22 tape starting later on today. Is this mostly a cover 2 type shell defense? Do they play a lot of zone back there, cover 3? What's been the identity? What do you expect to see a lot of? The teams have been playing a lot of cover 1 against the Steelers because they just take away that middle of the field and force Roethlisberger to go outside the numbers because he does not throw it in the middle of the field. Do you expect to see a lot of single high type safety stuff?
I think that is something we could see, but Joe Barry's defense is basically taken from the Rams. He came from the Rams. He learned under Brandon Staley, and that's why Matt LaFleur hired him. He wanted that Rams defense. And so what you see is a lot of 5-man fronts. They'll play a lot of 3 guys up front and 2 outside linebackers. They want to take away the run, and then they'll sort of, their signature is to play man on one side and zone on the other. They'll try to disguise a lot of their coverages. I think you're right. They probably will play some singles, safety. It kind of depends on how many receivers the Steelers put out there. If the Steelers play a lot of 2 tight ends, or they end up, they'll play it, the 5-man front. But if they end up with 3 receivers, 4 receivers, then I think you'll see more of the 1 high coverage.
And wrapping it up here, Aaron Rodgers was again on the Pat McAfee show yesterday, and it's pretty standard fare, talking up the opponent, and had a lot of positive things obviously to say about Pittsburgh and Mike Tomlin and everything along those lines there. A lot of Steeler fans, obviously try to run with that, and knowing that Aaron Rodgers' contract situation, what it might be next offseason. To me, I would find it absolutely amazing, if Aaron Rodgers was in any other uniform other than the Packers in 2022. However, it's still probably a possibility that he might not. What would you tell Steeler fans about the possibility of, because that's all they can talk about right now is, boy, Aaron Rodgers in a Steelers uniform in 2022. How surprised would you be if something like that happened, Tom?
I'd be pretty surprised if it were Pittsburgh. So he's going to, I do think there's a chance that they will have to trade him. This is a guy who does not forgive and forget. And so even if they win a Super Bowl, I would think that he may still try to move on. But I think, there's only going to be some select teams that he's going to be willing to play for, and he's going to want to be on the West Coast. I think San Francisco is the place he wants to play. I think Denver would work out. He he's from the West Coast. He's, engaged to an actress who does a lot of stuff in Hollywood. So I would be surprised if that were one of the teams he would be willing to go to. But I also think he'll go to a team that has a chance to win right away. And the Steelers always have a chance to win right away. So I wouldn't completely rule it out, but if he goes somewhere, I just have a feeling it'll be somewhere out west.
All right, Tom, tell our listeners where else they can find you on the internet, outside of the paper, outside of the Twitter machine, and also, if you wouldn't mind, how about a midweek prediction on the game? If you don't want to throw a score out there, that's fine. But which way do you think this one ends up going? But do feel free to throw a score out there if you'd like.
Okay, well, first I'll go with that first. First, you have to tell me, is T.J. Watt going to play?
We think so, but those groin, how those groin injuries can be, though, and he's probably chomping to get back on the field there. He was questionable last week, and then they downgraded him on Saturday to out there. So I think the chances are pretty good that he will play. Now, will it be 100% T.J. Watt? We'll see.
Yeah, T.J. Watt is extremely popular here. Of course, he went to Wisconsin. He's from Pewaukee. And every person in the fan base believes the Packers should have drafted him ahead of Kevin King. And, that is a huge deal. That'll be talked about all week, that T.J. Watt should be a Green Bay Packer. And they drafted Kevin King, and he's been pretty close to a bust. So that'll be a huge discussion. I do think if he plays, they're going to have some issues blocking him regardless, and I think they will be able to get after Rodgers a little bit with the four-man front. I do think that the Packers up front will be able to take advantage of Pittsburgh's offensive line and playing at home on grass. They're pretty tough there. So I'm leaning towards taking the Packers right now just because they are always very good at home. I don't really have a score yet. I haven't even thought about it. But if I had to pick right now, I would take the Packers at home. And as far as what we do here, you can see our coverage at jsonline.com or packersnews.com. They're both the same, basically. And if you're interested, I do a live blog during the game where I answer questions. I give my thoughts on the game. I try to give analysis in the real time. And it's a lot of fun. You can reach me there on packersnews.com. So, we talk both sides of both teams, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, Tom, we certainly do appreciate it. This is your first time on a Terrible Podcast, and we've had this thing running since about 2010 there. And, obviously the Steelers and the Packers don't get together very often, but the next time that they do after, this upcoming week, we hope to have you back on the show again. You've been absolutely fantastic. And once again, we appreciate having you on the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex today.
Thank you, Tom.
It's been a real pleasure, and I appreciate you guys having me.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. And again, our special thanks to Tom. I apologize that I mispronounced his name. It's Silverstein, not Silverstein. So you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Silverstein. And be sure to follow him during Packers games. He has a live blog over there, packersnews.com. Great guest, first-time guest, I believe, Tom, and he was fantastic, Dave.
Absolutely. I've been following him a long time. You want to talk about adding to our list of esteemed beat writers, good gets, I guess you would say. Been following him for quite a while, and obviously the Steelers don't play the Packers, every season there. So it's one of those things that I guess it's like how often does an eclipse come along or something like that? But anyway, good get nonetheless. Kind of proud to add him to the list of beat writers that we've had on over the years.
All right, Dave, before we get to reader emails and close out the show, let's talk about our friends over at Prediction Strike. And I did not know this until after the fact, but we have apparently purchased 3 shares of Mason Rudolph stock, which I don't know what you're doing over there, Dave, but I guess we now own part of Mason Rudolph stock.
Hey, Mason Rudolph stock is cheap, man. And if Ben Roethlisberger keeps taking 10-7 hits like that. By the way, what'd you think about that hit by Reader on Roethlisberger? We kind of went over it quickly as a play on one of those misses to Claypool in the end zone. Did you get a look at that? Still, you think Reader's going to get fined for that? Should he have been penalized on that?
You posted that on Twitter, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it was a good grab by you. It would not surprise me to see a fine coming his way. But yeah, Ben took some massive shots, and I will give the O-line props. They got really good at helping up their quarterback. That was probably the best thing they did on Sunday.
All right, we do own 3 shares of Mason Rudolph stock right now that I bought this morning, and also our stock that we bought on PredictionStrike.com of Najee Harris and Pat Freiermuth has made us a little bit of money, especially after Najee Harris had all those catches the other day there. So if you don't know what we're talking about PredictionStrike.com. Have you ever heard someone say, "I've had stock in this player since day one"? Well, now Prediction Strike makes that a real possibility. Prediction Strike lets fans get closer in on the game than ever before by buying real-time shares of players that they love and really truly believe in. When the athletes perform well, when they grow into their potential, their stocks rise, and so does your portfolio. Look, this is just like the stock market, except the players are the shares here. You use real money here. You can buy and sell just as you would stocks. If the stock goes up and you want to make some money on it, then you sell high. You buy low, sell high. That's the whole goal of it here. And if you got a pretty good read on not only Steelers players, but to me, it's like another type of fantasy football game here. And simply visit. Look, it's the world's one and only sports stock market where you can buy and sell shares of your favorite athletes, and it's not just NFL either. You know, if you there's other sports you can do this as well too, other than NFL. Favorite athletes build portfolios and make real money using everything you know about the game. You can check out the Prediction Strike app on the App Store and start investing today. Simply visit PredictionStrike.com to create an account. Then deposit funds to buy, sell, and hold shares of your favorite players just like you would real stocks. The value of the players will change based upon game performance and user demand. And you can trade your shares of players at any time. So here's what you do. You go to get started today by downloading the Prediction Strike new app at the App Store or by visiting PredictionStrike.com. Sign up with a promo code terrible. That's terrible. And then once you do, you will receive a free share of an athlete's stock when you deposit $20 or more. So go to PredictionStrike.com and use promo code terrible. And Alex and I will continue to keep you in tune with our own portfolio, which like I said, we now own Najee Harris stock, Pat Freiermuth stock, and as you can tell by the excitement in Alex Kozora's voice, we own Mason Rudolph stock now as of this morning.
Yeah, let's buy some Enron stock while we're at it. That's kind of what we're doing over here. No, it's a great site. I was checking out the layout of it. It is really cool. You can kind of see the trends about stock prices and the players' worth and value over time. And you can it's not just NFL. I was looking up other basketball players and stuff today and things like that. So it's a really quick, clean interface. I hate sites with really kind of clunky interfaces and you can't really tell what things are and it's just a pain to use, but not the case for Prediction Strike. Really clean and easy and fun to use. So thanks to them for being a sponsor of the show.
Oh boy, you better hope Mason Rudolph stock doesn't triple here by the end of the season. I'm going to be giving you the business pretty hard.
How do you triple from like a penny?
Well, I mean, it was pretty cheap. It's $1 something a share, I think, on that. Why wouldn't you buy that right now the way Ben Roethlisberger's getting knocked around?
Yeah, I get you. So we'll keep you posted for sure. All right, Dave, let's get to read emails and close out today's show.
All right, let's get to reader emails here. Derek Dimmy writes in, O-line question for the podcast. Hello, fellas. I know it makes sense to play Kendrick Green if healthy so that he can develop with live game reps, but at this point, wouldn't it be better for the Steelers to play Hassenauer or even Finney at center? As much criticism as there is or was all offseason on these two players, don't they give the Steelers the best chance to win this game against Green Bay? Thanks as always for the great coverage. Still waiting for the Steelers Depot Fungible Minutia t-shirt. All right. Yeah, we're still, things get put on the side burner. They apologize about that. We're still working on getting a t-shirt designed there. What would you say about his comment that maybe Hassenauer or Finney is a better start at center right now than Kendrick Green?
I mean, I get that. I understand the point they're trying to make there. But if you want Green to get better, and if you want the whole, continuity with the offensive line stuff, then I think you just keep trotting Green out there and seeing what you got with this guy, whether he's going to sink or swim. So, I mean, obviously we'll start with his health. It seems like he will be healthy enough to play this week, but I think you stick with Green and find out as much as you can find out about him.
All right, Lance Sampson writes in, Lance here, quick question for you both. I know you guys don't like to play the game of hypotheticals, but let me just paint a picture for us here. We finished the season last year going 1-4 and get basically stomped by the Browns in the playoffs. Speaking of playoffs, we haven't won one of those games, and Lord knows when. Some optimism building in the offseason due to the additions of mainly Najee Harris, Freiermuth, younger line, and new OC, but season starts when we're 1-2, and it looks like could start getting ugly. Particularly, it looks like an extension of the end of the season last year. My question regarding Ben, if the offense continues to struggle, including Ben, how much does loyalty play into Steelers considering putting Mason in at some point if the Steelers begin dropping more games? Obviously, I don't see this happening anytime soon, but could you see this happening if we're clearly floundering, or would we expect Ben to play all season if healthy, no matter the results? I get the question. I really, really do. I'll let Alex take first stab at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, we'll cross that bridge if and when we come to it. It'll take a lot for Ben to be, benched and to go the whole Eli Manning route, maybe if it's really late in the season. But, I'm not even at that point right now, to be honest with you. So, I mean, we'll just see what things look like in, week 16.
You are going to play hell trying to get Roethlisberger off the field if he's healthy. Pure and simple. I
mean, yeah, but if Tomlin wants to do it, he can do it. I mean, Ben's not going to like it, but Tomlin has.
All right, I hate these type of questions. I really do. He's right. I mean, but if you get to, let's say, week 12 or 13, all right, and I don't know what the magic record number is there. Is it 3-9? Is it, let's assume that you get to that questionable, arguably or non-arguably questionable spot there come week 12 or week 13. Do you bench Roethlisberger?
I don't know. I mean, it depends how well he's playing. I assume he's not playing well in that scenario, but I can't say that for sure. I mean, I think at some point, end of the year, you would probably play Mason just to get a look at him, and start evaluating for next year. Will that come in week 12? Maybe that's a bit early, but maybe by week 16 that may change. But I don't know. I'm bad at these hypotheticals as well.
Do you think they'll get to that situation from where you sit right now?
I mean, do I think they're going to be 3-9? God, I hope not. I mean, maybe that's just the way I'm driving my answer. I don't think it'll get that bad, but who the heck knows at this point? I'm trying to just think about beating the Packers.
It's a delicate question, and there's hesitancy in that because of the monumental, what a monumental decision that is. Ben Roethlisberger's career ends in Pittsburgh with him holding the clipboard the last 6 games. It's hard to imagine, really, but I mean, there's a first game and the last game at some point, right?
Yeah. It is a little different, though, because it's not like this team has a first-round pick who's never played before kind of waiting right behind him. I know there's Haskins there, but Rudolph's probably next man up, and obviously you can get more of an exposure with Rudolph and learn more about him, but it's not a Eli Manning, Daniel Jones kind of a situation. So I think it's a little bit different in terms of like who next man up is.
I have a feeling I have a feeling we're going to be talking a little bit more about this at some point. I'll leave it at that.
I don't reject the premise as much as I would have, like before the season began, but I just, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I promise you, if that situation occurs, we'll be talking about it a lot. So don't worry about that.
This one from Mike Schertzer writes in, guys, I'm trying to think about whether it's the offensive line, the scheme, or the quarterback when it's probably all the above. I believe one of the things you guys mentioned last year was that the offense had poor route combination, like everyone was running a pattern, but there wasn't much thought and effort in having those patterns work together. I think we just talked about that earlier in the show there about independent routes. When you watch the All-22, do you see evidence of improved route combinations under Canada? Mike, I think we already answered that. I think you know what way we're going on that. This is hands down the best Steelers podcast and my favorite content online. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't let any negative comments get you down. Look, we just like talking about football, Mike, and like going in depth and talking about things like route concepts and things that we see, honest opinions. And look, it's probably going to hurt the show overall, especially look, the Steelers losing, that hurts everything really when we're talking about this kind of stuff here. But we're not going to try to sugarcoat anything for anybody. If we think something needs to be praised in the All-22, we're going to praise it. If we think there's a lot of ugly in there, we're going to talk about it. And right now, we talked about route combinations and all, and especially stuff that stresses, let's say, one middle of the field safety. We're just not seeing it.
No, we're not. I think it's inarguable at this point. So, I mean, obviously it's a negative podcast today, but the team did not play well and has not played well since week one. And so we're just going to be honest about it. I mean, there are still bright spots, and, it's not all bad. I posted some positive clips on Twitter, but things do not look good right now, and we're not going to try to say otherwise.
All right, buddy Daniel Russell from Brisbane, Australia is back with us again. He says, I really liked your YouTube video, Alex, on why Kendrick Green is struggling. Was just wondering whether you think his issues are secondary to his technique versus athleticism and any limitations of his body type, short arms, etc. Can we have much hope he will get better? Thanks for keeping my long drives for work interesting there.
I mean, we'll see. I think some of the stuff is certainly fixable. I think it's more of a technical issue than it is like he's just not strong enough or quick enough or something like that. I think from a tool standpoint, he's actually, is pretty high up there, pretty athletic, a pretty strong dude, pound for pound, in terms of weight room stuff and things like that. But yeah, I think the size limitations certainly hurt him when he's dealing with, bull rushes, things like that. We've talked about that since basically the day he was drafted. And so I think technically you can work on some things and improve some things and probably still never be perfect there, but be better. So we'll see. It's a process. I think context is important. He's a junior, supposed to be a senior in college right now, and playing a new position at the highest level in football. So I think you need to have some understanding of that, but certainly he needs to show improvement and quicker sooner than later because he's struggling out there.
Hopefully we will see some of that, but I think third, fourth game of 2022 season is where we're really going to be able to make a more, do they need to go back into the center pile again type of thing. You got to give this guy a full off season, I think, to know what his limitations are, how he needs to get stronger, aspects of learning the position just as a whole. And once again, this isn't a kid that played center a lot in college, an underclassman on top of it. He is as advertised as far as demeanor, athleticism, but that's all that we have right now.
Yeah, it's still a lot of tools and rawness. And I mean, I hear what you're saying about the offseason, and that's probably the right approach. But if it doesn't look better by week 16, then you just kind of wonder how much better is it really going to get.
You do have to wonder that. And
I have that thoughts in my head right now, I'll be honest with you.
I do too. I really kind of had those right from, I was pretty stunned by the selection, I got to admit. And I think I've said as much over the years too. He wasn't a guy that I had on my radar as being a center selection for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Mine neither, although looking back on it, which is always easier to do. I mean, I understand why they took him.
based on what was off the board and all at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, that, and just based on they wanted to get aggressive and nasty and physical and athletic, and he checks those baseline boxes.
I mean, I have my doubts that he's going to be the next in the great long lines of Steelers centers. I'll leave it to you that way. Once again, I don't throw guys out after 3 games,
Right.
But if we do get down into week 15, 16, and we're talking about the same stuff with him, and it is going to be kind of hard to sell that going into the offseason that just give him a few games into the second season,
Right, because the fear is if you just wait a whole offseason, then you have to deal with those problems potentially for another season and not address it till 2023, and you want to stomach that. So I don't know, that stuff down the road, but he's not playing well right now.
And I'm not on the train to just move him to guard either, but you might not have a choice at some point. Anyway, Todd is next on the list here. Todd Gensler writes in O-line and gel. 3 questions on this Wednesday. Do you think that the offensive line has time to gel and actually improve? It sounds like everyone has moments where they do well, but always some person misses their assignment. Do you think there's a chance could look up and be okay? Time will tell, brother Todd. I don't think they can get much worse, but of course we said that going into the season.
Yeah, I mean, do they have time? They got nothing but time. I mean, they're playing. As long as they're healthy, they're going to be out there and working. So, I mean, yeah, they'll have the opportunity to get better individually and collectively.
Is Matt Canada in over his head? Was this a hire that just appeases Ben, or is he capable of bringing something to the table?
I don't think this hire appeased Ben. I don't know if Ben was super excited. Yes, this is my guy. I think there was an effort to maybe keep that continuity and have a guy that everyone knew in this offense. Is he
over the head because of the type of quarterback Ben is?
Well, yeah, I said, when they made the hire, the first thing I said was, how kind of Canada and Ben work together and compromise their ideals is going to be the biggest thing. And obviously it has not worked well so far. I still make the point, though, that it's not like Canada needs some hyper-athletic, mobile type of quarterback. The guy's won with all kinds of types of builds at quarterback, athletes and non-athletes. So I don't know. I think it's the struggles of changing an offense and changing terminology and taking Ben so far out of his comfort zone. And you already have growing pains with an offensive line that's completely new. And there's just so much newness here. Everything is just different. And you're trying to work this on the fly here and what is going to be Ben's final season. And you're just kind of just drowning, trying to make it all work out there on the fly.
Do you think Ben will right himself, or has he checked out? It seems like he's making more snap decisions and not surveying the entire field. No, I don't see Ben as checking out. I just think you're seeing the back end of Ben's career here, where he's at, and not thoroughly entirely entrusting, and why should he, this offensive line? I'd be skittish as hell behind that offensive line, to be quite honest with you, as well. And not having a run. This is not just Ben. Let's make this clear. This is not just a Ben thing. If they had a running game and a defense providing short fields, and a little bit better route combinations, possibly. Would you see a better Ben? Yes. Now, will you see Aaron Rodgers' version? No. Dak Prescott? No. There are limitations now at this point of Ben's career, and those just didn't happen overnight. All right. But where Ben is at in his career is being compounded by the lack of everything else.
Agreed. He's got to have a better supporting cast than you could get away with back in 2008 or 2009 or whatever. But no, I don't believe he's checked
out. Mike Tomlin, what would you think about the question, Mike? We forgot to cover this. Mike Tomlin being asked about what kind of he hangs his hat on with this offense, basically saying the eligibles.
Yeah, it was funny. Whenever Tomlin first made the comment about we got to work to maximize our strengths, minimize our weaknesses, I was like, what are our strengths? What are the strengths of this team? And someone asked him, I'm glad someone asked him, what are the strengths? And he said, yeah, it's the eligibles, it's the receivers, and they talked a lot about Trey Turner specifically. So I guess it's the receivers and the right guard are the strengths of the Steelers offense.
Real quick, Nick writes in, hey there, fellas. Nick from Columbus. Rough start to season, O-line, blah, 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 blah. I can't help but think the Steelers drafted Kendrick Green because he's Marquise Pouncey's doppelganger.
They look alike? Yeah, I guess they kind of look alike. I haven't really done a side-by-side. I buy that, though.
But is that the reason why they drafted him?
No. I don't think he's. I hope that's not a serious comment, but they do kind of look alike.
Jeff Berg writes in, Eli Manning and QB gurus. Oh, what do you think about that Mannings? I mean, now they're going to take the Mannings away from us for like the next 4 months. How great is that on Monday nights?
No, it was really good. Although I will say, if the Steelers play Week 9, I think it is, the Monday night game, assuming the Manning cast is there, I won't be able to watch the Manning cast because I got to lock in on the game itself. But it was the most Eli Manning thing to give the double bird, and you're like, they can blur that out, right? And everyone's like, no, they cannot blur that out, Eli. You're flipping off the camera on live television. That was a very peak Eli Manning moment.
Jeff writes in, I know this probably doesn't matter as it's probably Ben's last year, but I have a question. Does it bother you that Ben said he never has looked into mechanics and just goes out and throws the ball? I heard Eli on their Monday Night Football coverage talk about getting coached up by a QB guru. Just seems inconceivable that a team would pay a person untold millions and that person would do everything they could to improve their game, especially as a quarterback ages. I would think there's techniques that could help improve efficiency, a movement to make up for physical losses as the player aged, like a professional musician, just not having a hunger for something new to get them to the next level. Shouldn't Ben have been doing the same? Jeff, it's easy to write an email and think maybe this and all like that, but we don't know exactly what Ben does and doesn't do once he leaves the facility.
Yeah, but I don't think he has like a trainer. Like he always says he like never throws during the off season. Like he almost prides himself on never throwing a pass. I mean,
has I guess to turn this question into really the long and short of it, has been invested enough into himself and his game the last few years?
Well, what I was gonna say is, I mean,
that's what the guy's asking, right?
Yeah, he is. Whenever Ben was rehabbing, he basically had to learn mechanically how to throw again. So while that's not like a Tom House, Jeff Christensen kind of like personal quarterback trainer guru, that was kind of like learning mechanically how to throw again, if that makes sense, in a slightly different type of way. I think there's some validity to the point of like Ben has always been just like this athletically gifted guy. They just gets the job done, just a gamer, just like a Farvian, just make it happen kind of a guy, and that's worked for 90% of his career, but that back half 10% when the physical skills begin to degrade and you're coming off injury and things like that, maybe you do feel the effect of not being so mechanically inclined that last 10% of your career.
All right, we have several more here, but we just don't have time to get to them, folks. We appreciate all the emails. We can't run this much longer here. I do want to kind of end the show on this, Alex. Though, we talked about heading into this season. There's a lot of talk that maybe 2021 isn't Ben's last season. After all, obviously his contract voids 5 days after the Super Bowl, and there's been a lot of talk that Ben might not be done. Might be. Where are we both at on Ben possibly playing in 2022 for the Steelers?
Well, it's a subject of my terrible take today, actually. So timing there, he's done. This is his last year, and I think everyone knows it. And you know what's strange about this, and people are gonna probably think this is BS. I have not even listened to you. I did not even know that was your terrible take for today. I haven't even downloaded it yet. There, so it's kind of weird that I mean. That's just kind of, I guess, the wavelength that you and I are on here. I had not even listened to that, so I don't want to. I guess I'm spoiling it to some degree there. But I thought about this last night. After watching Ben throw and playing in the Bengals on the all 22 and all like that, I don't think there's any way at this point that 2021's it for Ben, at least in the Steelers uniform. I think he's done in general. I don't think he's going to play somewhere else at 40 and try to start anew with Chicago, or not Chicago, but some other team like that. I think he's done. I think he wants to be done. And whenever the season ends, I think the team will be good with that. And it provides me a bit of comfort though, because I'm going to try to appreciate these last couple games with Ben more, even if it's bad and ugly and things are kind of disastrous the way that they are right now. Just knowing that, it's not like you're 50-50 and then he retires and you're like, oh, I didn't really get to appreciate that those will be the final games. So I'm going to try to do that and just kind of like enjoy watching this quarterback, this Hall of Famer, because it's a dude I basically watched my entire football life. So I'm going to enjoy it at the end of the season.
Yeah, whereas at the start of the season, I was like, okay, yeah, I don't think you can entirely – that's where I think I left it off at the start of the season, was I don't think you can entirely rule it out as a possibility of Ben playing past 2021. I will now say that I think you can entirely rule it out. And I know it's only 3 games, and yeah, we're such haters, and Alex and I have always hated Ben. I think it's evident over the years that I've always been a Ben Roethlisberger hater, right? But that I'm obviously having fun with that. But I think this is the end, 2021. I think
it's just about how like his body's got to be just hurting so bad right now, and like it was one part like would he come back was how well will he play, A, and B, how well will his body feel, and his body's got to feel like crap by the time December rolls around. He's just getting hammered back there. So like even if he felt like he wanted to and had his heart in it, which I think he still does, but even if that thought remained in February, his body's got to be just in terrible shape here after the season.
I'm worried about him lasting the season, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he's getting hit.
He's getting crushed.
How hard? Yeah, it's how hard he's getting hit, dude. It's just, I'm like wincing when I see this stuff.
I mean, go look at that clip I put on my Twitter feed of that slow down hit by Reader. I mean, and that's not just that wasn't the only hit he took in that game. A, and B, that's probably not even the hardest hit he's taken this season.
No, that Crosby hit in week 2, I think, was one of the hardest hits I've ever seen Ben take, because he just collapsed.
I mean, you cannot expect that guy to take these kind of hits week in and week out and not miss some time. And that's probably going to play into these game plans of getting that football out even quicker. The short, it's all adding up together here, and I'm worried about him not getting seriously injured right now based on what I've seen out of the first 3 games. We talk about deep route concepts and all. I don't even know how you can draw something like that up and expect the line to block it up to give him time to have middle of the field conflict, schemes or whatnot. But say a prayer for him.
Yeah. All right. Good show today. Sorry, we ran a little bit long. I think we did, but we have good stuff. We'll be back on Friday.
Yes, we will. And as always, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Hey, get on there. Get on Twitter and thank Tom for coming on. Tom Silverstein, at Tom Silverstein. Please, if you made it to the end of this show, hop on Twitter real quick and thank Tom for coming on a terrible podcast today. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you want to donate to the show, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button for $25 for 1 calendar year. You can have an ad-free version of the site. Yeah, we ran long today, but it's a good show. It's worth it. In the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.